let's talk about what happened in that preseason game between the Raiders and the 49ers. Mike, since your team actually showed up, I'll let you show up first. Go ahead.
Well, it was pretty clear early on that the defense was just playing tougher football than the Niners offense or something. The defensive line was outright overpowering the offensive line for the first 3 drives. And a lot has been said about Trey Lance, but it's not all on him. I think a lot of the credit should go to the Raiders defensive line. And there were even plays where the defensive backs, the coverage was, so good that it held up Trey Lance and maybe led to a sack, So, I took notes of like certain plays. Like the opening play was a sack. And I want to say it was John Jenkins and Jordan Willis, who, again, Jordan Willis was all over the field the first quarter of the game. I had heard nothing about him this entire training camp, and I was starting to get worried because I really liked the signing, and you kind of got me excited about him. And I hadn't heard anything, and I was like, is this guy just going to, like, not make the team? It's going to be like Kuntz and Tyree Wilson and, obviously the top 2 starters, right? Like, is he somehow just not going to make this team? Maybe they keep another D tackle in place of him or something. But no, Jordan Willis is making this team. He has to be the 4th defensive end. If not, right now he might be the 3rd defensive end. And Tyree Wilson has a ways to go, because that was impressive out there. I felt on that first play, though, that first sack, we talked about it in our breakdown, which we should shout out. We broke down Trey Lance's film, and like we said in the video, we're not exactly we're not
quarterback experts. We're not film experts.
Defensive alignment experts, nothing like that.
I want to say, if you have to correct us on something, feel free to do so in the comments. And I don't know about Mike. I'm pretty sure he's the same way, but I love to learn. Yeah. Teach me teach me something. Like if there's something I missed in the breakdown, comment it, and I'll take a closer look, and I'll learn from it for the next time.
Yeah.
But go on.
It's really easy to want to learn when you really enjoy something like we enjoy football. I mean, the fact that we have a podcast about it should tell you everything about how much we love football, right?
For everyone at home, you might as well tune out now because I hate this sport. I don't know if you can tell, but I've never watched a football in my life. You know what's funny? Yeah. We went from 7 to 6 viewers, so at least one guy listens, or girl, or other. I don't whatever.
But Amik Robertson had good coverage on that first play. The Niners coverage team, like Greg Papa,
they're secondary. Oh, they're the announcers.
Announcers, yes.
The commentary.
Yeah, when I was watching the game, I was watching on theirs, and in the third quarter, they mentioned that the first play that Darnold got was apparently the same play as the first play that Lance got, which is an interesting choice. And on both plays, the quarterback's first read was the receiver on the right, which in this case was covered by Amik Robertson. And for Darnold, he immediately threw the pass. Lance looked and was kind of like, and looked somewhere else, because Amik Robertson he had good coverage. So I just thought that was interesting that they said that.
I feel like I know the play you're talking about. It was the deep one to Ronnie Bell, right? It was.
I think that was their second play.
Oh,
was the deep one to Ronnie Bell?
The deep one to Ronnie Bell. I just want to say it was a beautiful throw. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Ronnie Bell maybe got away with offensive pass interference. Like it looked like his arm was extended, so I don't know if there was a little bit of a push off. But I'm not trying to make excuses. Obviously, the ref didn't call it, so maybe it was the right call. And but like I said, beautiful throw. I just feel like I don't know. I would have to see the replay again of that one, but maybe we got lucky with no OPI.
Yeah. I don't really want to go like play by play or anything. I'll just kind of talk about guys who seem to stand out. For one thing, the most of the defensive line was just wreaking havoc and creating pressure, which was really nice to see for the Raiders. Some of the corners, I felt like, again, Amik Robertson did really good. Jacorian Bennett gave up a big 3rd and 10, but other than that, I think he had a good night. Duke Shelley had, I thought, a great night. It just, his one pass deflection that should have been caught by him gets caught by a Niners tight end in the end zone, which was funny.
Just the way
in the
Lance
regular
pictured it.
Yeah, in the regular season, that would hurt. But and that would totally happen to the Raiders. But again, I mentioned him earlier, Isaac Rochelle. He was a guy who was just like a free agent a month ago, and they picked maybe 2 months ago. They picked him up. He looked great. Defensive end. I was kind of watching Dylan Parham a bit. He was doing great at left guard. I'll get to Aiden O'Connell in a little bit. Chris Smith, the backup safety, the 5th-round pick, he looked good on kickoff coverage. I didn't really notice him much on defense. Amir Abdullah, backup running back, he looked actually really good. Like nothing crazy, but solid, even as a kick returner. Oh, Amari Burney, the linebacker, the 6th-round pick, he got a sack. He should have had an interception on Trey Lance. The Raiders have been needing a pass covering linebacker. Is that right? Pass coverage linebacker? A coverage linebacker.
A coverage linebacker.
They have been needing one so bad. If he can turn into that guy, man. And even just right now, like I know Divine Diablo and oh boy, I'm forgetting his name. The other, oh man, hold on. Let me get his name. The guy who signed from the Steelers, Robert Spillane. I know they're going to be the starting linebackers in like their base packages, but perhaps on 3rd down, obvious passing downs, you might take out Spillane, who's not, from what I understand, he's not too good, versus the pass, and maybe you bring in a Amari Burney. So if he can become that guy, even if he's not a starter immediately, that's huge for the Raiders defense.
Mm-hmm.
Negative. I thought Justin Herron, the backup left tackle, had a fucking bad night. Also, Azizi Hearn, backup corner. He's an undrafted rookie. He was having it rough. He was the guy who gave up that big pass play against Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
Like he gave up a couple plays. He wasn't looking good. Justin Herron gave up a 2nd and 1 run stop to Cleveland Farrell. So then it became 3rd and 1, and then Aiden O'Connell did a QB sneak. But like, it's 1 yard and it's a run right up the gut. Like, if you watch the play over again, Cleveland Farrell is the edge defender, and Justin Herron's like, he's in his stance and he like goes to try to block Farrell, and Farrell must have went out like really wide. And for some reason, all Herron did, instead of like continuing to like step to the side, he just like swiped at Farrell's hand, and Farrell just like dipped and went right around him and got the tackle from the edge. And Zamir White was going up the gut of the middle of the offensive line. Like, he went a ways. And I told you when you guys signed Farrell that he's really good against the run. So on obvious rush downs, if you see Farrell, like, you should feel good.
What I'm most excited about in terms of Cleveland Farrell is that he is paired up. He's a former 1st-round pick selected in the top 10, right? Number 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Number 4 overall in 2018 or 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he was definitely selected with high upside, and you just give Chris Kosarick these reclamation projects, and he will do. He will work wonders. Have you seen Chris Kosarick coach, Mike? Have you seen like what it looks like when he's coaching D linemen?
I haven't seen it, but obviously it works.
Let me pull up a clip because you have to see this. So
Also, I know you kind of you mentioned it earlier with Grant Cohn. I don't know if Grant understood what you were talking about, but I saw that press conference when Max Crosby was talking about the meeting with Kosterick and the Niners. That shit was hilarious.
Dude, okay, so let me. Hopefully, this has audio, but this is from 2 years ago. But I swear, Chris Kosterick is like this all the time. But he's just an intense. He's an intense coach, right? So you can see this, right?
Yeah.
All right. So check this out. Here.
One time for the one time. One time for the one time. DJ versus Chris. One time for the one time. One time for the one time.
He just ran in and he's ready.
Once you beat him to the punch, roll your hips through before you escape. Bring the power to it before you escape. Why don't let bitch out and escape? Let it go. Let it hang loose. Let it go, DJ. Let it go.
He gets down and dirty with the players, dude. Pause. But dude, he gets in their face. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
He makes them compete with one another too in the tag drills. I'm sure other coaches do that too, but
Yeah.
all right. Whoa.
Go!
That's awesome, dude. I mean, there's more to the video, but we could go on all day watching that. And that's from David Lombardi. So shout out to David Lombardi for the video with the audio. Love it.
Yeah. Just to roll back on the Raiders really quick, and I'm almost done with the Raiders, honestly, for this game. The last thing I want to talk about is Aiden O'Connell. But first, Justin Herron, again, backup left tackle. He gave up that run stop. He also gave up a sack like 2 plays later to Cleveland Farrell. I didn't like what I saw from him. And now I'm a little worried about the depth at left tackle because I want to say they don't have anybody else in the roster right now that can play left tackle. I don't think Jermaine Illuminor ever – I could be wrong, but I don't think he ever really played left tackle. He might have in the preseason last year, but I'd have to find that out. But point being –
Question.
Yeah. Well,
So-
one sec. Point being, Brandon Parker just got placed in IR. He whatever it was, he got a knee injury, I think, probably a torn ACL or something, against the Niners in joint practice. It wasn't reported on at the time, but it was announced yesterday. He got put on the IR. This is 2 years in a row that he's been put on IR before the season even starts. And I think the past 2 years he's been intended to be their main swing tackle. And he, the backup left tackle, of course. I've never cared for him. I've never had any confidence in him, but it sucks. And now seeing Herron struggle out there, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to need to see some more from Herron because I think he's our only option at left tackle behind Colton Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So
my question for you is, has Colton Miller missed any games in the past couple years? Because, I mean, since I don't pay it as much attention to the Raiders as you and other fans would,
mm-hmm.
It kind of seems like he's a guy. I always hear that he's on the field, or I've never heard that he has injury problems, knock on wood, right? But, he's kind of one of those Iron Man players.
Yeah.
From what it seems like.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. It looks like the past. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Okay. Last year, he missed 1 game apparently. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what that reason was. This is from Pro Football Reference. Mm-hmm. But well, actually, 2021 perfect, 17 out of 17 games. 2020 14 games. 2019 16 games. 2018 his rookie year 16 games. And that rookie year, I remember he was injured quite a bit, but he played through it. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, he has been, an Iron Man for this team, and I have to hope that he is again this year because, yeah, I had a lot of issues with this roster, coming into training camp. I think right now. And I could be a little too high on this roster and after training camp and these joint practices, but my biggest concern is no longer that's debatable. I was going to say it's no longer the right guard spot. It's no longer the linebacker spot. It's probably backup left tackle, but I think I still worry and wonder about the starting right guard spot. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I feel pretty solid about this team. Like, I'm not expecting to go out there and win playoff games, but I think this team can go out there and make the playoffs. That's how I'm feeling right now. But
I feel like they have it in them. But is the typical Raider stuff going to happen in a season? Right. You lose 1 week and it just spirals, and then next thing you know, you lose to the worst team in football, and then after that, you beat a playoff team, and it looks like there's hopes. And then maybe you don't spiral down to get like the number 1 overall pick, right? Like there's just enough fight in the team to be below middle of the pack and miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is it going to be one of those seasons for the Raiders, or are they finally going to have this new culture that will be built from Jimmy Garoppolo? And, maybe there's a little bit more buy-in, by the players to
That's
try
what it
and
feels like.
It's definitely from somebody who's watching the team from the outside. I mean, they just kicked the fucking Niners' ass. Everybody like strongly believes that the Niners have the best roster, and the Raiders dominated them for a whole week. Not even just all right. If it was like,
if it was just the preseason game, it'd be like, well, that's the backup.
Well, it seems like maybe the Raiders game planned or whatever, but the fact that it was in practice too, and you can say what you want about practice, but you practice the way you fucking play. That's just simple as it is in football. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and the
Niners should be either the Niners should be super worried on how they performed against the Raiders, or the Raiders should feel damn proud of themselves. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Because now the Niners got me thinking like, shit, dude, we're in trouble. We have no depth. The Raiders have me in shambles right now.
Us just talking to Grant Cohn, it's like I was sitting there like, I had really never thought of this that hard, but I mean, you guys get an injury to Trent Williams and I don't know, Christian McCaffrey. How many games do you think you just lost just because of those 2 injuries?
I don't know. Kyle's the kind of coach where he will win the games that you don't expect him to. And then the games that you do expect him to win, he'll find a way to fuck up. Right. We won week 17 against who ended up going and winning the Super Bowl to the Rams without Trent Williams.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
So Colton McKivitz was the left tackle who is now the right tackle. Right. So, I mean, we ended up down 17-0 in that game, but we came back and won. So, I mean, to hang on to what you said about like you hadn't thought about that, or like you hadn't thought about it like a certain way in terms of like the Niners, like what happens if this happens, dude. That's like one of the main reasons why I continue to watch Grant is like, maybe I don't agree with everything that he says, and a lot of people dislike him, and honestly, there's a lot of people who I feel like dislike him and kind of act like cartoon character bullies online. Like, oh yeah, take that low life. Like, as if it's like from like a fucking like high school movie, like a bully.
He gets like unnecessary slack. I don't really get it. So.
Yeah, or flack.
Not flack. There you go. Slack. Yeah.
But
flack.
Like, I mean, I get it. Like he stirs the pot on Twitter and everything, but like, dude, it's just Twitter. It's not that serious, right? But like, if you actually watch his videos, listen to what he says, it's pretty rational. And I think he gets me thinking in a way that I didn't think before. Right.
Yeah.
And then it makes me think maybe that is going along. And then also you have to keep in mind, he's there actually watching these practices. And you know what everyone who's talking shit about him is doing? On the couch, thinking that they know better, right?
Yeah.
So, and then like, there'll be people who are like, oh, you think you know better than Kyle Shanahan? And it's like, well, Kyle Shanahan still hasn't won a Super Bowl. So, apparently he's done something wrong because he's had a loaded fucking roster for like since 2019 now.
Mm-hmm.
He gets credit for building the roster. Don't get me wrong. But at some point, you got to build it and you got to win. Plain and simple. If you don't win, then you know what? You're going to be remembered like the way the 2012 Niners get remembered. Like, yeah, that was a badass team. But you know what? The 2012 Niners got they went to the Super Bowl, and then they, I guess, were like on the field for halftime against the game, with the game against the Chiefs this past season. And apparently all they got was a golf clap. You only get standing ovations for Super Bowl championships, right? That's how you get remembered. That's what gets you like up in the rafters. That's what gets your jerseys retired, right? Most of the time. There might be some players coming out of that Harbaugh era who might have their jersey retired. Patrick Willis, Joe Staley, Frank Gore. But Niners are running out of numbers, and you got to save that for the Super Bowl winners, because I better be alive by the next time they win it, right?
Yeah.
I have to see it at least once.
Yeah. So I think for the Niners, it's like they are kind of skating on thin ice this year, it feels like, with their quarterback situation. And just how the past week, again, it just feels like they are an extraordinarily top-heavy team, and that's only going to get harder to get depth when you sign Boza, right? It's like you're not going to have money in free agency. You gave Javon Hargrave a $20 million deal per year, right? Their one thing going for them financially is that they don't have to pay a quarterback, even though technically they kind of are for Trey Lance because it's the third overall pick.
Well, guess what, Kyle? If Brock Purdy is the real deal, like you say he is, you're going to have to pay him soon. And if you don't pay him, you know what it shows? The Niners are cheap. It's what it shows. And it's what people say about the Yorks. They say, oh, cheap-ass stadium is, they moved out of one of the best cities in America. Well, I mean, it's kind of rough right now with all the crime and all the homeless people. But, like, they should have never left San Francisco. And, they need to get that cornerstone quarterback. The Yorks still have not had one. The closest thing they had was Jeff Garcia and Colin Kaepernick. And Alex Smith for a little while, was good too. But it was extremely short-lived from when he was good to when Kaepernick just transcended, and took over the team.
Yeah.
So
what is our next topic?
Okay, our next topic, I just want to brush on this, slightly. This might, be like a really quick thing, but it'll be paired in probably with, what happened in the preseason game. But Davante Adams returned to practice. I just added this right now because I just remembered, maybe we just wanted to briefly mention it. But because last time we were on live, we said Davante got knocked out of practice and, with a hit or a collision with Oren Burks, and Davante Adams had to get helped off.
Yeah, that's what somebody said, and he was hobbled and all that. It, like, when it was first tweeted about, it was like, oh, shit, like, how serious is this? And then, within an hour, it was like, it doesn't sound like it's that serious. And then Josh McDaniels goes on a press conference, is like, I don't think it's crazy serious, is the way that he put it. So I was under the belief the whole time that it wasn't a serious injury, and thankfully it wasn't. So,
well, yeah. So I think it's absolutely good news, just all around that he's fine. He's already back on the field, and maybe he's playing, through it. But you know what? He just saw Aiden O'Connell put on a fucking clinic, and he's like, I'm ready to go. Right.
Yep.
And then, so before we go on to the next topic, I just really quick, I don't think I got my turn to talk about like what happened from the Niners point of view in the game.
True. I'm so sorry about that. You said Aiden O'Connell. I was like, I didn't even talk about him. We just kind of
exactly. I thought of Aiden O'Connell, and I was like, you know what? We gotta bring it back. We didn't talk about him. Aiden O'Connell looked stellar. He looked fucking great.
Yeah,
right?
I was listening to a podcast today. I promise you're going to do the rest of the talking after this. He threw one pass away, which was a good decision. He almost got sacked, and he kind of like ducked and like evaded it, and then immediately threw it out of bounds. He didn't even think about it. He just, fuck this, Good call, right? he had that deep pass to Trey Tucker, number 89, that when you saw in the replay, it went right through his arms kind of and bobbled on the ground. It looked like he caught it first. That diving catch was like, whoa, but
I was on the couch at home. I was like, Kyle, throw the flag. This happened in the NFC Championship game. I was like, learn from your fucking mistakes, and he did. So thank you, Kyle. Oh my God. Like, all right, you could ask Pia and her family. I was begging on the couch. I was like, please throw the flag. You know, when it's close like that, more often than not, you're going to see that the ball hit the ground. And then especially they started hurrying up to the line. And I'm like, where have I seen this before?
Yeah. And not in the sense that you're begging him to reverse a play in the preseason. It's more of like just to see him
learn
it and
from
feel
your
confident.
Mistake.
Yeah.
Just learn from your mistake. You have to be better. That's an area where you have to improve as a head coach. You can't just, you can't put your face down in your play sheet and just worry about the play calling that you're going to do on the next series when you see your defense gave up a big catch. You have to be, you have to continue on being a head coach, right?
Yeah.
And this is an area that I want to see Kyle make improvements, and he did on Sunday. So in that regard, Kyle, good job.
Yeah. Last thing about Aiden O'Connell. I want to say he went 15 for 18. I can't confirm that. But also the offensive line only gave up like one pressure, I think. Or that sack. And I think that was it. Like none of the offensive linemen, other than Heron, gave up any pressures, which might be more telling on the Niners defensive line than the Raiders offensive line, but we'll see. But Aiden O'Connell, he went 15 for 18. Pretty sure. No interceptions, just a touchdown. Couple QB sneaks on third downs. That was nice. But the three incompletions. He had the throwaway. He had the one that was dropped by Trey Tucker on the deep play that Tucker dove, and I felt like he didn't need to. If he just put his hands out and kept running, he probably catches it and just goes out of bounds, But then Trey Tucker also dropped a easy catch, I want to say on a third down. Theoretically, like you take away the throwaway, I think Aiden O'Connell had a perfect night out. Like I couldn't have asked him to do anything better. And his decision making, his processing, how quickly he makes a decision and fires it is impressive. And of course, how confident and calm he looks in the pocket is very refreshing as a Raider fan. You could probably assume why I say that. But specifically because he's wearing number 4, just to make it a little more obvious. I like what I see so far. So,
like, here's what I'll say about Aiden O'Connell. Like, he might not have the flashy plays that, Brock Purdy had last season, or he might not have the arm that Lance or Darnold has. But I looked at Aiden O'Connell on Sunday, and I just looked at Kyle Shanahan, and I'm like, dude, is it that fucking hard to get a guy like that? Like, dude, the Raiders didn't trade up. The Raiders just got a guy who – how many years did O'Connell play in college? Do you know?
I don't know. I want to say he was actually a walk-on at Purdue, and he played at least the past 2 seasons.
I mean, O'Connell might be garbage, right? Like, maybe the Niners just played a terrible game. O'Connell might be garbage. He didn't look like garbage on Sunday. He looked fucking great, right?
Well, he's apparently been known for his accuracy and decision-making, although I think – in the offense he was in at Purdue, he apparently had to throw the ball like a lot, and it also caused for a lot of interceptions, which was kind of the worry for him. But he looks like an accurate, smart quarterback, and he looks so confident in the offense. Like day one, it's like, dude.
He looks like a guy who's going to take over for Jimmy Garoppolo in the middle of the season. Like we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo being that perfect bridge quarterback. This might be the guy that might take over the system. Like, he looked that good. But, if the season doesn't go that well and you see what you have out of Aiden O'Connell, maybe the Raiders might be in position to get Caleb Williams, or some other guy out of college. So
that's the thing about the Raiders this year. It could go any way. It really could.
Yeah.
But
so
talk about the Niners.
Yeah. Let me talk about the Niners, and then we'll move on. So what stood out to me in this preseason game was definitely the Kyle challenge, right? Even though Lance wasn't good, right? I mean, I think we can all say that he wasn't good, and I'm not saying he's a bad player. It's just one preseason game. I'm not going to overreact. And we did a film breakdown. I don't think he was as bad as everybody else said, but so we saw Lance's floor, right? We saw the floor, and maybe the floor could have gotten lower with those interceptions, but I think we kind of take those into account with what it looked like on Sunday. I thought Ross Dwelly played a hell of a game, right? He saved Lance from another interception. He had the one where he had to catch the ball that was behind him, and it was going to hit one of the Raider defenders right in the chest for a pick six. Ronnie Bell had a great game. He might have been the player of the game for the 49ers if it wasn't Ross Dwelly. The offensive line just got fucking bullied, right? And then Jordan Mason missed, he missed that catch that could have gone for, huge chunk, right? And I think it forced Lance off the field after that. And then they had to start another series, and then they ended up driving down just fine. Lance led a pretty good drive with 2-minute drill with less than a minute left. So Lance was better as the game went along. His first 3 drives, terrible. They were awful, right? The whole team was bad. It was just the whole first quarter. Throw it away. Don't ever fucking think about it unless you're going to use it to learn from your mistakes. That being said, the defense got gashed. And they have been getting, the offense has been having high completion percentage against them in the training camp. It seems like the quarterbacks have been highly efficient and everything. There might be cause for concern for this defense, because if Nick Bosa has to miss time, due to contract stuff, hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully this isn't a factor. It didn't seem like the pass rush was getting home for the 49ers. They struggled, and this is the Raiders' backups, right?
Right. The only one was Cleveland Farrell, of all people.
Yeah. I thought, hopefully I never get threatened by Kinlaw, but Kinlaw didn't look good. Yeah. I think Kinlaw I've heard that he's had a great training camp, but what I saw a lot of times where maybe the Raiders gained a huge amount of yards, maybe 8 or 9 yards on first down or whatever the down was. And I would just notice, why is Kinlaw over by the ball but not making the tackle? Why is he bouncing up as if he just got blocked or driven back, right? And so it's just disheartening. You really root for a guy like that. And, I wish I understood what was going on more with him, but it just seems like he maybe doesn't have the lower body strength to hold his ground because of the knee injuries. Because he's the biggest player on the field every day. He's huge. And I think he's almost like an athletic freak. If you see him, you're like, damn. I've seen him in person a couple times, on the Niners practice field. I'm telling you, he looks the part. But if pad level is going to be a constant issue, you're not going to have any leverage against, good offensive linemen, and you're going against the Raider backups, and you're getting driven back. I'm sorry, but unless you fix the pad level, you are going to be a walking sled on the field. And that's what it was on Sunday. That's just the truth. And I know this because I played offensive line, and I had to block players like that, where maybe they were bigger than me, right? Maybe they were more athletically gifted. But I just had good footwork, kept pushing, right? you use the leverage. You get right up under their pads and push them. So that's what I saw out of Kinlaw. And Kinlaw wasn't the only defensive lineman who I saw this for, but he's the one who gets like the most notoriety for, I guess not playing up to standard of the Niners defensive line because he was a high draft pick. It might have been Kevin Gibbons also kind of struggled, I heard. But I mean, I know I saw Kinlaw like beyond the line of scrimmage a couple times.
Chris Conley and is it Ambry Thomas?
Ambry Thomas.
Those were two guys who kind of stood out to me early on in the game. And then also just two more Raiders that I completely whiffed on and didn't mention. Cole Fotheringham and Dalton Wagner. Fotheringham, I think they're both undrafted free agents this year.
What a fucking name. Fotheringham.
Cole Fotheringham, I know. Fotheringham. He was the tight end.
Maybe I'll make a thumbnail of like somebody coddling like a little ham, Fotheringham. And don't put his face on it.
Yeah.
Don't put his face on it.
There you go. He was the guy who just kept at tight end. This is our fourth tight end on the roster. They set their top three tight ends. So Hooper, Mayer was hurt, and Jesper Horsted didn't play. But Fotheringham looked great as a fourth tight end, and I don't necessarily think they'll keep four. So he might, if he ends out on waivers, when the cut downs to 53 happens, like somebody should scoop him up because he looked great. And then Dalton Wagner's the undrafted free agent at right tackle. He looked like a fucking beast out there.
Yes, he did. That's another player who also played very well.
If they could keep him at this rate, if he plays like that the rest of the preseason, like they can't.
He should be the starter.
Well, no, they're solid.
If he plays like that,
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, they have these issues with right guard. I'd be all for them putting Illuminor at right guard and then having it be a battle between Mumford and Wagner at right tackle.
Maybe Wagner could be, maybe they could transition him to guard because, I mean, he just looked powerful.
He's super tall.
Okay, but isn't he kind of stubby? Like, like a chunky guy?
I don't know. I'd say if anything, that's Illuminor,
Okay, then yeah, I guess you want to move Illuminor inside, to go against those bigger nose tackles. But yeah, Wagner looked pretty well. I mean, he looked really good.
Yeah, I didn't mean to hijack the Niner talk. I had to talk about them. So
no, you're good. I'm glad that you did because I forgot about Wagner, but Wagner should not forget about Wagner because that was good shit on Sunday.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of him. So
yeah. So is there anything else that I wanted to talk? Oh, yeah. So you mentioned Ambry Thomas. I did notice Ambry Thomas had a good couple of plays, which is encouraging for him. But he's kind of a tough player to gauge because at the end of 2021, it really seemed like Ambry Thomas was kind of coming into his own, and then 2022 last season, he just wasn't that guy. What I noticed out of Ambry Thomas when I saw him at the open practice, I'm like, but this is when he was a rookie, so maybe he's like filled out his body a little bit more, but he just looked undersized. And a lot of the stuff that I hear about Ambry Thomas is that he gets picked on at practice, and it's like he'll be in the right position, but he just doesn't have ball skills. So, he's one of those guys who's definitely fighting for his spot on this team. And I think Sunday it was probably a good showcase. I say that now, but I didn't see the defensive film. And I know the Raiders were able to complete any pass that they wanted. So I don't know if Ambry Thomas was getting cooked and it flew under the radar for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he did have some good plays. So, the last player that I'll probably talk about, unless another one comes to my mind, is Jake Moody. I was telling Pia's dad, I was like, man, the Niners should, I think it was 4th and 1, and they were in field goal range, like early in the game, or second quarter. Lance was at quarterback, and I was like, I was like, they should go for it. And then I was like, but then again, they have a rookie kicker. The rookie kicker needs to practice too.
Yeah.
And apparently he really needs to practice, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he has the leg. He can kick it deep. But as I said on Sunday to Pia's dad, I said kicking in a game, and he knows this already, but kicking in a game is way different than kicking in practice, right? It's the mind games. It's what goes on up here. Really, like, besides having a really strong leg, most of being a kicker is just staying mentally strong. And so the Raiders gave him good practice because he got iced twice. Not to be confused with Ice Spice. No, they iced the kicker twice. And he just got practice of what it feels like at the NFL level in that situation. And I know he comes from Michigan, and Harbaugh, I want to say, vouched for Jake Moody as like a really, he's really strong mentally. And, that kid had to fight for his job, and, all this and that. But Jake Moody, I really hope you don't get discouraged by what happened on Sunday. You just got to let it go, and you got to go forward and just practice and take it with a grain of salt that, you know what, that's what missing a kick missing a kick in the NFL is like, right?
Mm.
And on the other hand, the 49ers, make sure Robbie Gould is in shape, just in case. But no, I don't think they should cut Jake Moody. But it's just tough because it's another player that doesn't match up with their timeline. If he's a kicker that has to develop into a guy that's going to be lights out, they could lose the Super Bowl over a guy like that, right?
Yeah.
So another high draft capital player, because picking a kicker in the third round, there are other guys you could have had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's risky.
So hopefully he improves.